Not all stories in The Sims 4 are surface level. One character in particular has a very elaborate backstory, but doesn't actually appear in-game. I'm talking about Princess Cordilia, a historical figure referenced in the item descriptions of various paintings, sculptures, and pieces of furniture. Princess Cordilia is named after a Shakespeare character and lived a very adventurous life. Princess Cordilia is said to have been born into royalty, but her last name is not mentioned in any of the in-game item descriptions, nor is there any mention of her family. Cordilia loved the sea and enjoyed lounging at the beach by tide pools for hours. She enjoyed watching the crabs scuttle away from the seagulls flying above, and she enjoyed watching sea anemones in the water. She lived in a grand palace along the coastal region of a great kingdom. Residents of this kingdom dressed quite formally. The men would wear suits and top hats, and the women wore long dresses. There were also a lot of cats living in the kingdom, which Cordilia disliked because they made her sneeze. The palace was decorated with vases of beautiful flowers, and Cordilia is said to have enjoyed the fragrance of these flowers in the palace halls. One of Cordilia's hobbies was painting, and she had her own studio in the palace where she would paint the various floral arrangements from the castle. Cordilia also had her own staff, including furniture makers, a private jazz band, a butler named Bob, and a cook named Matilda. The princess loved tea, and princes from all around the world would come to court her over tea, but she preferred the company of pirates, and she would go on to date multiple pirate captains during her life. The first was Long John Buttercups, a pirate who was so famously unhygienic that Cordilia designed a sink just for him to use. He was also a little too interested in Cordilia's corset, which added to his ick factor for her. While they were dating, Princess Cordilia's kingdom was invaded by giant sloths in an event known as the Great Sloth Invasion. The residents of the kingdom were forced to flee or die, including the princess. Cordilia had her own private submersible called the Epsilon, which she used to escape with her smelly pirate boyfriend, her personal effects, and a handful of staff. Despite having 48 rooms on the Epsilon, Cordilia's personal effects took up so much space that she was not able to bring most of her loyal staff with her, including Bob the butler and Matilda the cook, who presumably perished in the Great Sloth Invasion. A statue of Bob the butler was later made in his honor. The princess was also unable to bring her personal jazz band with her, leaving behind a saxophone player named Jacob Goldentips and a bass player named Martin Maxwell, as well as a trumpet player whose name was lost to history, and a piano player. As piano was Cordilia's favorite instrument, this musician took it upon himself to tie his piano to the top of the submarine and play as the vessel departed, and he continued playing as the Epsilon submerged, presumably to his demise. She missed her jazz band so much that she recreated their instruments. However, with no one on board to play them, Cordilia resorted to making paintings of the instruments instead. Life on board the Epsilon was rough on Cordilia because she longed to be outdoors. Despite leaving behind much of her staff, she did bring her furniture makers with her, and she designed several items inspired by her time at sea, many of which drew inspiration from elements of ocean life she observed through her submersible windows. Cordilia traveled the world, selling the furniture she designed at the various ports where the Epsilon docked, but she never stayed in one place for very long. And when she didn't know where to go next, it said she would spin her globe and wherever it stopped would be the next destination. As her own private cook Matilda was unable to board the Epsilon, Long John Buttercups brought his private cook instead, and this cook prepared a meal that would go on to become Cordilia's favorite dish, scallops fried in garlic. But ultimately, Cordilia's relationship with Long John Buttercups came to an end, and he left the Epsilon, taking his cook with him. Next, she dated Captain Chaz McFreeling, but this relationship was brief. He was certainly better groomed than her previous pirate boyfriend, but he was extremely vain. Cordilia quickly grew tired of him constantly looking at himself in the mirror, and she ended the relationship. She later would go on to name the mirrors in her submersible after Chaz. Her third boyfriend was Captain Rodrigo de Pablo, another pirate, but a clumsy man who was always getting himself hurt aboard the Epsilon, including an incident where his feet were smashed by a pressurized pressurized door. Cordelia gave Rodrigo de Pablo a peg leg after his injury, but this caught on fire while the pair were sitting together by a fire. The description for Cordelia's ottoman says, "At least he never suffered a broken heart," implying this incident may have been the cause of Rodrigo's demise. It is said that Rodrigo de Pablo was Princess Cordelia's favorite boyfriend, but further details about their relationship are sparse. Each of Cordelia's pirate captain boyfriends had a parrot, and each one had a commemorative plate made in honor of their parrot, but when the relationship ended, Cordelia was left with the plate. Despite having only 3 known pirate boyfriends, Cordelia collected 4 commemorative plates, implying a 4th boyfriend who some suspect was the Prince of Willow Creek, Edward Terence Bertrand. There's also a rumor that the same Prince Bertrand was secretly the piano player that sacrificed his life playing off the Epsilon during the Great Sloth invasion. To help her keep track of the time while exploring the ocean depths, Cordelia designed a clock for the Epsilon, but as it was a 12-hour clock, she didn't know if it was daytime or nighttime outside. Eventually, she fed this clock to a kraken that regularly attacked her submersible with fire. After several encounters with the kraken, Cordelia was able to harness its power, and she used its fire to create a porcelain bathtub that she designed. After some time aboard the Epsilon, Princess Cordelia settled in a cottage in Henford-on-Bagley for a brief period. She enjoyed the countryside and was happy to be outdoors again. This cottage was located in the very top of the Bramblewood. Cordelia would have likely wandered the woods in this area and swam in the River Bagley. Since she left most of her staff behind during the Great Sloth invasion, she was also missing her stair butler, who would carry her on the stairs. So it was here in this cottage that she used the stairs by herself for the very first time. In a diary entry, Cordelia refers to them as peasants' stairs. Princess Cordelia was welcomed to Henford-on-Bagley by the founder of Finchwick, Lord Volp, who apparently lived in the Castle Volp, a site that now is just ruins. Lord Volp was quite fond of the princess, and he gifted her a bovine topiary that he made himself, as topiaries were one of his trademarks. Volp also named the nearby waterfalls Cordelia Falls after her visit. Princess Cordelia also spent some time in the area of Brightchester and helped design some of the buildings on the university campus. A downloadable version of Princess Cordelia named Cordelia Thebe is available on the gallery. This is the first and only mention of Princess Cordelia's last name. Her biography reads, "What simple description could attempt to summarize the extraordinary life of Princess Cordelia of Royal House Thebe? A poetic soul who enjoyed the ocean, the company of pirate suitors, painting, jazz, carpentry, and adventure, yet lost the home she so loved in a terrible invasion. A woman who not only survived a kraken attack, but used its power for her own purposes. Few Sims can rival her story." This downloadable version of Princess Cordelia comes with additional characters relevant to her lore. Her 3 pirate boyfriends, Long John Buttercups, Chaz McFreeling, and Rodrigo de Pablo, as well as Bob the Butler and Matilda the Cook.